Hi, it's Katie again, and I thought this time we'd talk about how to make your open EPS rig and how to start from the beginning on that. So I'm going to start with flashing your Edison in case you were nervous about that. It's really not all that bad, and we'll just kind of walk through it. Hopefully, we'll see how it goes. So what I have here right now is a brand new Edison put on an Explorer board. We're going to plug it into the computer using both cables. So I'm going to put both into here. And we will probably see a notice come up that this has connected eventually to the computer. And it will show up on connected devices or shared here sometime soon. I don't worry about that too much. It'll eventually show up as it gets read and booted up. But basically, we're going to follow the directions for the Mac installation of the Edison flashing build for the rig. So basically what you need to do is first you take your Edison board, which probably comes packaged in some sort of box and usually in a plastic case. If you save that plastic case, it does have the MAC ID of your Edison board itself, so you can always refer back to that if your school district asks for the MAC address of your rig that you're using to add it to some sort of whitelist for their Wi-Fi system. You could pull it off of here. There's also ways to pull it off after you log into your rig. You can find the MAC address as well, but it is on this little plastic thing. So once you have that all put together and you follow the directions that are on the screen there for building your rig, which is basically putting in these little spacers, a screw and a nut, holding it tight, and you really want to make sure that this side part where the Edison seats and connects to the Explorer board is one little strip, and you just want to make sure that's pushed down really well. And now we're going to flash. So basically it starts with downloading what's called Juba Linux. So there is a system that comes standard, an operating system basically that's on the Edison board standard, and we're not going to use that one. So we're going to use one that's specialized a little bit, and it's called Juba Linux. And you're going to click on that link. It's going to take you to this file. You'll notice that there's actually 3 Juba Linux versions. There's 0.0, 0.1.0 and 0.1.1. You can just go ahead. All of those will work. The advantage of choosing one of the latter two is that those ones don't require you to push a Control D in the middle of the setup. So I'd recommend either using that March 31st or April 4th version. I've already gone ahead and downloaded. By clicking on this, it will download a zip file to your computer. So I've already downloaded the April 4th version. You can see a successful download here. It takes about 2.5 to 3 minutes depending on your internet speed. It could be slower because it's about 630 megabytes it looks like. So it goes to your download folder. You can either see it here, or if you have your Finder window open, you can see it in your downloads folder. It'll be here, Juba Linux. And so now you have your Juba Linux folder downloaded, which is great. And you can see now here, actually the Edison has connected. It does show up on the devices part. If you ever want to see inside of your Edison, this is not the place to do it. You will not get any information from your Edison by clicking on it here in the Finder window. It is not like your other devices. This is not the way to expect to access any information. So just give up on looking for information in your Edison this way. So let's get back to it. We have Juba Linux downloaded now, so let's keep going. Basically walking through here. The next thing we're going to do is open up an app called Terminal. So you're going to go to your Applications folder, scroll down, and you're going to go to the Utilities folder, scroll down again, and there's the Terminal app. Go ahead and double click on that to open it. I'll close this out in the background. I'm going to make this bigger so that you all can see it a little bit better. Hopefully that helps, or maybe it just gives more screen real estate. And we're going to go down here, and we're going to have to set up a couple things first on the computer. You may or may not already have Homebrew installed. If you are a Loop user, you probably already have Homebrew installed. No big deal to redo it if you already have it. If you don't have it, you can go ahead and install it. And so you copy and paste that command into your terminal app. You're going to enter the passcode of your computer. When you're in terminal app, when you enter passwords, you won't see any keystrokes. They don't log, they won't show, but they're still being typed in. So I've just typed mine. I'm going to press return, and it's going to install Homebrew. It takes about 20 seconds. It'll go through. And when it's done, you'll notice that it drops us out at the terminal app prompt. Just a note here, if you're new to terminal and not used to open APS or terminal and you're brand new, looking to the left at the bottom of your terminal app will give you a good indication of where you are. So basically this gives you the computer's name and then the user account. So this computer name, user account, that's important because when you're logged into your rig, you will see root and your rig name in there. So if you're ever at a loss for kind of seeing things that are unexpected in terms of behaviors, like you type in a command, you go, I don't understand, it's not matching up, just go ahead and double check that you're still logged in or in the location that you think you should be. If you wanted to be doing stuff in your computer, you should have your computer's name and user in the terminal prompt. If you want to be in your Edison, you should have root and your Edison name, host name in there. So just a word of warning about kind of navigating terminal and where you are in it. Okay, so next we're going to install a couple more things. It's not really important that you know everything that they do. It's just important that you go ahead and get them installed. So we're going to install these. I cannot remember how long these take to install, so we'll just see. Oh, not very long at all. Okay, so those ones are done. Next we're going to install this one. We're going to copy, paste. These ones are going in. And that one's done. So now we're all up to date. Basically, now we're going to really start the process. So you only need to do those steps once, no matter how much you're setting up new Edisons, if you want to do new rigs or anything else. This is the only time you end up needing to have to do those steps. So once you do those once, you're good to go. All right, so now we're going to start the Edison in screen mode. So basically, we're going to copy this command. And screen mode is where it's the cabled connection into the rig. So in screen mode, you have to have at least one cable plugged in to the Edison in order to connect. If you don't, it won't work. The other way is a wireless connection. The wireless connection is called SSH into your rig. So for this one, we're going to be doing that. We're going to open up a new terminal window. I'm going to do Command N. Or you can go up to new window with basic settings. So you can do either one. So we're going to have another window open here. I'm going to cover up that for just a little bit. I'm going to leave this one here. I'm going to go here. And I'm going to copy and paste that command for entering screen mode. I'm going to enter in my computer password. And it gives a blank screen at first. You're going to press return, maybe once, maybe a couple times, and then it'll come up with Pokey or Yocto. That's the operating system we don't want to have in there anymore. We're going to replace it with Juba Linux. So the Edison login, the basic, is you're going to log in as root, and there is no passcode. So one of the interesting things that people get confused a lot about is what I call kernel interrupt messages. If you see lines in the screen that start with a bracketed number, that's what I call kernel messages. They're coming from the kernel, the operating part of the Edison. I'm not very technical, so probably better ways to say these things. But if you see those messages, you can ignore them. They are kind of annoying and you can get them to turn off. I'm not going to adjust that right now. We'll talk about that later. But needless to say, these little ones that start with a number in brackets, you can just ignore. So this is on the left, this is our screen mode. This is our Edison side. On the right, we have our Macintosh side. So moving on, we're going to go, if you start with this one, we're going to go to the terminal window here. That's our computer. And we're going to navigate using terminal into a different folder. So I'm just going to give you some context in case this is confusing. It's actually not. When you're on your computer, if you turn on the path view, you can actually see where you are. You can do that basically by showing, I think it's called path bar. You can do Finder, View, Show Path Bar. And this is your computer. Your computer has different users. I'm logged in as the user is called iMac 4K. That's, you might be Katie or you might be John or Bob. And within that, you will see several folders. One of the folders you'll see is downloads. And in that downloads, you're going to see your Juba Linux folder. So all we're going to do with Terminal app is actually navigate to that same folder, but with commands. So what's happened is that the Terminal app has dropped us off at this folder, and I'm going to tell it to change directories, CD is the term for that, to the downloads folder. So I'm going to say CD downloads. It's spelled with a capital, so I'm going to spell it with a capital. And if you notice now, the Terminal app has the location as the downloads folder within that user account. Great, that's what we want. Now I'm also going to change directories. Now that I'm in the downloads folder, I'm going to change into the Juba Linux folder, which is within that downloads folder. And now you can see that I've actually changed into the Juba Linux folder. So basically, we're navigating and moving around within the hard drive of my computer using the Terminal app commands. And you're going to do a lot of the same stuff when you're using your OpenAPS rig. So it's good to kind of get familiar right now with CD and changing directories as an idea of navigating directories and subdirectories and finding files. CD is just means change directory. So we're good. We're in the Juba Linux folder. We can see that just like the directions say we want to be in the Juba Linux folder. And in that one, we're going to enter this command for the flash all. So I'm going to bring up the other terminal window so we can see that. On this one, I'm going to copy and paste that command into the computer. And you see it says, please plug and reboot the board. So that's great, it's there. So a real easy way to reboot your Edison board is to go into that other command window. And we're going to say reboot. And that's it. That's the flashing process. Pretty much we're going to watch this go by. You'll get messages about the disk not ejected properly. Don't worry about it. That's just from the reboot. Again, you're going to see a whole bunch of kernel messages go by. They're bracketed. You're going to see receiving, a whole bunch of reboots. Basically, right now, we let the flashing process go by itself. This is on autopilot. If I have a way, I could probably fast forward this in the video. We're there! We are done flashing. We can close this window out, the one where we entered the flash all, because that's not needed anymore. It's all done. You can tell it's just the old computer prompt. So we are completely done with the flash. If you look, that's what all the stuff went by. Don't worry about this failed hostname service. There's a lot of messages that went by. It's not a big deal. Delete that. That was my wheel scroll. We don't use hostname service, so it doesn't start. So that's why that message is there. It's not a big deal. You will either see Uba Linux or Juba Linux at the prompt. It's not a huge deal which one you see, because basically what's really important is logging in. So you're going to do root, and the password is Edison. Type those in. Again, you won't see the password typing, but it will be there, and you can tell basically that you have successfully flashed if you see this words here about Juba Linux and Pokey Edison. And if you'll notice, for me, I can always tell, I look at the date, this April 4th, 2017. If you remember, we actually, when we went to go do the download, I'm going to scroll back up here for a sec. If you remember, we were downloading April 4th, 2017. That's why it says April 4th, 2017. So if you want to double, triple check that you have the Juba Linux that you downloaded, you can compare that date with the date here. If you ever get to the point where you forget all of this, there is also a really easy way to check it. You can do what's called uname-a, and it will prompt you to see that. So if you're ever unsure about whether or not your flash took and you can't remember, or you're wondering which version of Juba Linux you have, you can always compare the date and use that uname. But you're flashed, you're in, and like I say, I don't think flashing is that hard. It tends to go a little bit easier on Macintosh, it seems like, than Windows, although I've had great luck with Windows. Windows 10, I think, is a little dodgy. I haven't heard great things about that. So if you can find a Mac and you can spend, I think this has been a grand total of something like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. What are we at here? We are 28 minutes because I talk a lot. That's pretty easy to do. If you are a Windows user, you do have to do a little bit more complex setup. Basically, that Juba Linux folder that you get for the download, I'm trying to bring it up here, it's not coming up. The Juba Linux for the download, on the Windows version of it, you have to do a couple extra steps, like downloading a program called Putty, downloading Edison drivers, and downloading 2 extra folders or files that you're going to stick inside the Juba Linux folder before you flash. So Windows has a couple extra steps on it compared to Mac, but they both pretty much run the same idea, that you have 2 windows open, one for the computer, one for the Edison. The Edison is cabled up and you roll through it. So anyway, that's your flashed Edison. Congrats, it's not that hard. If you ever need to reflash, you do the exact same thing basically. You're going to enter your rig, your Edison board, through screen mode, and you're going to have 2 windows open, one for the computer. You'll navigate to your Juba Linux download folder. You'll do the flash all command. Everything will go. But anyway, just that's how you flash. Pretty easy. All right. See ya.